Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill news. First off, in today's news, we have a story from the Daily Caller. Trump says he's open to using emergency powers to build the wall. Anons already knew this. President Donald Trump revealed in a Friday afternoon press conference that he was open to using his emergency powers as commander-in-chief to build a wall along the U.S. southern border, even if he does not get congressional approval. Let's take a listen.
Have you considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
Yes,
on
I have.
Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
So you don't need congressional approval to build the
No,
wall?
we can use them, absolutely. We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country, absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. But we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly. And it's another way of doing it. But if we can do it through a negotiated process, we're giving that a shot.
Excellent. Yes, of course. We already knew that. The president has every right in the world to say national security, we're building the wall. That's why we're bringing the troops home, in my opinion. We need people here, boots on the ground, to get this built. Imagine the entire southern border crawling with the armed forces, stacking bricks, pounding steel into the dirt. It's going to happen. We're going to have this wall built. Trump told reporters he is able to declare a national emergency under his authority as commander-in-chief, but that he was not going to do it at this time. We can call a national emergency and build it very quickly. It's another way of doing it. We can do it through a negotiated process. We're giving that a shot, the president said. Trump said the suggestion was not a threat to Democratic lawmakers, but merely noted that it was an option available to him. Trump held his press conference with reporters in the Rose Garden after emerging from a nearly 2-hour-long meeting at the White House with congressional leaders of both parties. The meeting was aimed at ending a partial government shutdown over a dispute about funding the border wall. Trump is demanding $5.6 billion for a wall along the southern border, while Democrats say they will give him no more than $1.6 billion for border security. Throughout the press conference, Trump expressed optimism that such a deal will be reached and said he has instructed his staff and the staff of Democratic congressional leaders to meet over the weekend to seek a solution. Despite his positive tone, however, the president acknowledged that he told Democratic lawmakers he was willing to let the shutdown go on for months or even years if needed. If it becomes necessary to keep the government shut down for months or years, it will be the Democrats, mark my words, the Democrats who will be blamed for this, because everyone else, the citizens of the United States, know that we need this wall and we need it now. And the only ones standing between us and national security are the Democratic Party. Now, before we move on, I just want to once again call attention to Post 2582 here. Military spending bill included funding for the wall. D's exposed as anti-American. As I was just saying, it is the Democrats that are standing in the way of our border security and our national security. Coming back once again to this graphic in the Post. Clock activated, red castle, green castle. Okay, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in green castle. Their logo, the red castle. Pelosi said, "You will not win." You didn't think the largest military spending bill in history, fiscal year 2019, wasn't going to indirectly include funding for the wall, did you? Learn the Constitution regarding vested powers of POTUS, regarding matters of national security. This was planned and forecasted as the border funding solution from the beginning. Anons had the proof long ago, but shining a light back then would have defeated the primary purpose of showing the public the real objective of Democrats. Party of open borders, elimination of ICE, elimination of security, defending illegals over Americans, midterms, elections. These people are stupid. This was back December 11th, all right? This was the plan all along. That is why we have Trump talking about the fact that this is a national security issue. This is why we have the largest military spending budget in history. All right? The Army Corps of Engineers will build the castle gates. They are going to be the ones to give us the wall, and the Democrats can't do anything about it. They can submit as many bills in the House as they want, but it doesn't matter because they have to get through the Senate. And they're not going to get through the Senate because we have the majority. Pelosi is a moron. Next, in a story from the Gateway Pundit, bombshell report: British intelligence infiltrated conservative media outlet and targeted populist readers. Voice of Europe's editor Laura Catt has locked down her account after it was discovered she was acting as an asset for a British intelligence operation. Security expert William Craddock reported on this latest effort by British intelligence to influence political parties and election outcomes in Western Europe and the United States. The Gateway Pundit has reported extensively on the evidence that the UK was the main foreign operative meddling in the 2016 US election, not Russia. Voice of Europe, who we consider an internet ally, released a statement denying they have any link to UK intelligence. This is how the modern left and the deep state operates. They have no ethics or morals and believe conservatives and or populists are fair game. Here is William Craddock's Twitter thread. British intelligence infiltrates Voice of Europe media outlet. Full list of targets this British police intelligence program had access to or was seeking to gain access to. Note that this is a UK program. It doesn't even take into account others that might exist in Europe, the US, or Canada. Further statements from Emmanuel Emmanuelson indicate that Laura Catt was allegedly part of a program targeting political organizations and figures in both the US and Europe. According to Emmanuelson's father, targets include WikiLeaks, the Voice of Europe's owners, Polish politician Dominik Tarczynski, unnamed Republican politicians, a person close to Donald Trump, Tommy Robinson, and UKIP politician Janice Atkinson. Laura Catt had also purportedly hoped to use her connections with Voice of Europe to develop ties to high-profile figures such as Geert Wilders, Marine Le Pen, Matteo Salvini, and Viktor Orban. The Voice of Europe editor has also done design work for independent journalists such as Laura Loomer. I also have something else to put in at the end of this story about this. Pretty hard to underestimate the importance of this revelation. Voice of Europe is a major anti-establishment outlet and appears to have been totally compromised. It looks very bad when a group like this is controlled by the UK while fomenting unrest in other parts of Europe. Voice of Europe's editor has locked down her Twitter account in the aftermath of claims that she has been acting as an asset for a British intelligence operation. How many more times are we going to let the UK try to infiltrate our political parties and state institutions before it affects the special relationship? The UK is not the UK we used to know. Update: Voice of Europe issues statement denying that they have any link to government services. How much information does Voice of Europe have on European and American political dissidents? British intelligence has all of that now. Very, very interesting. Now, the aside that I have here is from Nick Monroe on Twitter. Now, Peter Sweden went missing at the beginning of December. I'm sure everyone knows Peter Sweden. In this thread, Nick Monroe breaks down the circumstances surrounding that disappearance. As you can see here, Peter disappeared at the beginning of December 2018 and hadn't resurfaced until today, January 4th, 2019. Peter says, this is in December, so I've been thinking about something. Authorities use tear gas to stop people illegally getting into the USA equals never-ending MSM coverage. French authorities use tear gas and use water cannons to mow down people protesting against tax increases. Mainstream media are just like, meh. All right, so that was Peter's last tweet. Now, finally, he appears on January 4th, and he says, Happy New Year. I hope you have had an amazing 2018, and 2019 will be even better. I've taken some time off the last month because of personal things, but I will be back as usual now. I see some have been worried about me, but I am fine. Thank you so much, everyone, for your concern. Now look at that. He has his real name in here now, Peter Emmanuelson. The name of the gentleman quoted in the article was Emmanuel, the father of him, Emmanuel Emmanuelson. Peter Sweden is known for his frequent tweeting, so people have begun to notice something is wrong and were concerned about what went down, myself included. Here's a bunch of people asking, where is Peter Sweden? Part of the reason people were concerned that Peter Sweden disappeared is because the UK police have harassed both him and his family for the past year. They were concerned that authorities finally got him. This stems from Peter Sweden's involvement in Defend Europe, which I made an outline of previously. Here he is supporting that. Peter Sweden reported on Phoenix NGO vessel for Defend Europe. Police kicked him out, forced him to delete the film, and the ship was delayed. There's those tweets a little bit more zoomed in. Soon after that when the UK organization Hope Not Hate decided to drag Peter Sweden's family unnecessarily into the public spotlight. Here's that article, far-right vlogger and Defend Europe supporter Peter Sweden's real identity revealed. The left just loves to do that, doxing people on the right, because they're interested in protecting themselves and their people. There he is, Peter Sweden, real name Peter Emanuelson, 22, of North Allerton, North Yorkshire, is a British national with ties to a scandal-ridden Norwegian company and to a £700,000 tax debt in Sweden. Here are screenshots from Peter Sweden's father showing that the UK police, specifically North Yorkshire police in particular, have been breathing down the family's neck for quite some time. Keep this in mind. So it looks like people are searching for Peter Sweden's family online. NHS is also doing that. So I have to bring up the fact that Peter Sweden's Twitter bio briefly said engaged, and he made a post about it. And it's not there anymore. This one is now taken by a very special girl. This was in November. It says he got engaged. Time to meet Peter Sweden's lady, Laura Cat. That's right, guys, the same Laura Cat from Voice of Europe. What's the most relevant thing here is that Laura Cat is the author for Voice of Europe. Not just an author, but an editor. She joined in April 2018 and made hundreds of articles between then and now. This is supposed to be a picture of Laura, but it's not. You'll see that in a minute. It's hard for me to tell you about Laura Cat. For example, I can't tell you how old Laura Cat is. She claimed to be in her 30s, but then began telling people she was 25. Here she is making tweets in support of Trump, and she states that she's 25 years of age here. Says it again here. Laura Cat might have a mother. She might not. Her story about that has changed over time as well. Here she is responding to Paul Joseph Watson. Saying that she has a mom there, but then that she hasn't had a mom since she was very young. Oh, and Laura Cat has someone in her family that works for Met Police UK. It's her brother-in-law. I should mention again that the UK police force has been harassing Peter Sweden's family. Very interesting, Laura. Speaking of family, Laura Cat was indeed married and has a daughter. Something isn't adding up here. Here she is saying that she was married in her tweet and that she had a child. Mentioning it's a daughter. Indeed, something wasn't right at all. Consider this the top of the roller coaster ride for this thread. This is testimony from Peter Sweden's father. According to him, Peter has never met Laura Cat, despite being engaged to her. Laura has convinced Peter to go against his own family and take steps to isolate himself from contact with the outside world. I will definitely leave this tweet thread in the link, in the pinned comment below, guys. It's a lot to digest, but basically it says that she had asked Peter to isolate himself. She was constantly writing him all day. She also refused to answer questions about herself to Peter's family, and when they asked her questions, what her response was to block them. And then she said nasty things about them. I strongly believe, based on the evidence provided and further yet to be shared, that Laura Cat, second in command at Voice of Europe, was trying to honeypot Peter Sweden to go to France and have him arrested. Voice of Europe is a large media outlet, so the public deserves answers. This is what Laura Cat actually looks like. Wow, she doesn't look 25 to me. I think these are pictures that was sent to Peter. This is a set of photos where Laura Cat tries to pass herself off in an effort to look much younger. Looks like maybe these are some pictures when she was in uni. And this is clearly her face photoshopped onto someone else. Oh, and here is Laura Cat's Facebook page, it looks like. That's clearly not her either. Around the end of 2010 and during 2011, it was disclosed in UK media that a number of undercover police officers had, as part of their false persona, entered into intimate relationships with members of targeted groups. Wow. And in some cases proposed marriage or fathered children with protesters who were unaware their partner was a police officer in a role as part of their official duties. Oh, wow. These people are low. I'm at an impasse where Peter Sweden is telling me not to release DMs. We've been at a standoff for several hours over this. His father told him to say yes to my request. Given the involvement of Laura Loomer working at Voice of Europe, you, the public, deserve to hear what Peter said. Peter's saying, don't go public with my DMs yet. I'm still wanting to try and get some answers from her, see what she has to say. It looks like Peter's dad is saying, keep pressing Peter, he might give in. I told him to say yes to your request. I have weighed this decision carefully. I have reached the conclusion that this is a situation of bigger concern than Peter Sweden alone. Below is some of his responses to me in our DM discussion. She said, loads of things. Please tell me you realize this person is not who they say they are. I'm beginning to realize something is sketchy. Yes, I'm going to call you. Right now, I want to try and find out more about who she is and what she is trying to do. Maybe she's trying to infiltrate the right-wing movement. Exactly. She hinted she wanted me to stop some time back, but that wasn't the reason I took a break. It wasn't because she told me to. What happened? Well, I have been trying to figure out this girl myself. I put a lot of effort into this, so don't have time. Didn't have time. One thing, I've been wondering if her real name is something else. She told me she has another Facebook account that no one knows about. Is it possible to find it? And most of all, I've been trying to figure out this charity she claims to work for. And he says, yes, I asked her about that. She claims it's because her Twitter was made up anonymous persona at the time to get people to vote MAGA and share WikiLeaks. Once she told me she had helped the police solve a phone hacking case. She works with Voice of Europe as a lead editor. She also works for some kind of charity that works with helping trafficked children. She has never wanted to say the charity name, but they work with MI5 and U.S. government, apparently. She has a non-disclosure at the DOJ, she says, and said her Twitter was to get Trump to win and spread WikiLeaks when she started her account. Is she a police infiltrator? Then we must stop her. While the public deserves to know about one of Voice of Europe's lead writers, Peter Sweden decided he wanted to catfish her back. I spent several hours trying to explain to Peter why this was a dumb idea, given how the thread I made here already began. If you enjoyed this thread, please feel free to support this gentleman on PayPal. Well, the reason this is so distressing is because it's not just people in Europe that they're going after. Voice of Europe follows me on Twitter. I followed them back. I thought they were a legitimate organization. Is this a global network that is trying to infiltrate the right-wing movement throughout the entire globe? The populist movement to be taken over by usurpers like this female? Wow. It looks like it. It certainly looks like it to me that Laura Cat is part of an intelligence operation that is working to take over and undermine the populist agenda. Let's see how this one pans out. And in a very sad story from the Daily Caller, how the media fueled yet another racism hoax and ruined the life of an autistic woman in the process. At first, it appeared to be just another story about a white person calling the cops on a black person over the summer. A supposedly racially motivated phone call to the police that caught international attention out of hundreds of others. Stories of police arriving to scenes across the United States to find black people committing crimes of barbecuing, sleeping in a university dorm common room, or selling water bottles were taken over by the media. With each story, a white person made the phone call, and each caller was given a memorable nickname. In this case, the caller was named Doorway Debbie. On a midsummer day in July, Darcel Obregon ducked under an apartment building to shelter herself from the rain while waiting for an Uber. Minutes later, the front door swung open, and out walked a 19-year-old girl who demanded that Obregon leave the premises immediately. The resident's name is Arabelle Torres, a 19-year-old student at Brooklyn College who also has autism. I came downstairs, and a woman was standing, as I am right now, and wouldn't leave, Torres said, who was describing the seeds of events that led to change her life. She said to me while standing outside of her home in Park Slope, "What might have been an unremarkable, high-strung incident that occurs hundreds of times a day in New York City ended up becoming a fake news story that race-baited an incident without credible evidence of bigotry." And here is the poor girl, Doorway Debbie, right now, Arabelle Torres. "Hey, ma'am, this is private property. Could you please move?" Torres recounts saying to Obregon, an assistant to fashion model Ashley Graham, who just flat out refused to leave the premises. After about 10 minutes of me saying, "Ma'am, go, this is private property," Obregon still refused. "So I called the cops," Torres said. "As a person with autism, I was scared. When somebody is blocking me from leaving, it is a big problem, and I was alone in that situation." As Torres dialed 911, Obregon whipped out her phone and began filming. Later that evening, Torres was at a Broadway show. The words "worthless skank" popped up on her phone. As dozens more messages poured in, she found out that Obregon had posted the exchange on social media accounts accompanied with hashtags associated with race-related events, even though Obregon is not black. Hashtags such as white privilege and barbecue Becky were included. Barbecue Becky refers to an event during which a white woman claimed the Hashtags such as white privilege and barbecue Becky were included. Barbecue Becky refers to an event during which a white woman called the police on black people for barbecuing in a public park, saying it was illegal for them to do so. The anti-racist internet mob found Obregon's posts and began to launch a seek and destroy campaign against Torres. "Your Facebook is out there now. Enjoy being slaughtered by the masses," a California woman wrote. Obregon's Facebook post reads, "On Sunday afternoon, I was in Brooklyn walking to the train when a sudden rainstorm began and I hid in the doorway outside of a random apartment in Park Slope to shield myself from the rain and call an Uber. No more than 3 minutes later, a young woman who lives in the building opened the front door and told me that I cannot stand there and I had to leave. I told her I was not going to move. Unbeknownst to her, I was just waiting for my ride and would be leaving in a couple of minutes. So then she proceeded to call the police." This is the individual who posted right here, Darcel Obregon. And she has, "This is America, Permit Patty, Barbecue Becky, Truth, White Privilege, Calling the Cops, Petty Patty, America, Accountability, We Can Do Better, Police, Epidemic, Entitlement." Comments in response to the video read, "She's high on something. Look at that jaw. She was just paranoid from whatever she had smoked. She is not Spanish. She looks Jewish. You should have beat her up, and worse." When hundreds more hate messages poured in and reporters began showing up at Torres' house, she began to experience enormous paranoia and anxiety that she was not safe. Torres was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder as a child. ASD refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. Torres said that for an individual with autism, she is pretty good at communication. This has come through lots of work on her part over the years in therapy. Her phone call to the police is part of that open communication that she has learned over the years. From Torres' perspective, whenever she sees or hears people outside her building, it triggers feelings of paranoia and tremendous discomfort. A 2012 study from the Journal of Abnormal Psychology found that even though the natures of the paranoia in schizophrenia and autism are different, autism features elevated rates of paranoia that is comparable to those of individuals with paranoid schizophrenia. The reaction to Obregon loitering outside Torres' residence on that summer day was symptomatic of autistic paranoia. It was not an example of bigotry, as media outlets reported. Let's take a look real quick.
All right, we begin with two viral videos going viral. Man, off to a great start.
Yes.
All right, first up, we have a clip from Darcel Obregon. She posted this video. I nailed that, but I can't read the intro. Of a woman calling the cops on her. Why? Because Darcel was sheltering herself from a rainstorm on another woman's doorway. That's right, watch this.
She's recording me right now. I've asked her to leave and she's refusing. Pretty old to be doing this, so... like 50. Heavy set. I would consider that. absolutely do not know her, and that's why I want her off my private property. If you go anywhere, you'll be committing a crime as well. You know that, right? Okay.
And do my work.
No, I refuse to.
Oh my God,
You're leaving. It's against the law.
All right, so if you guys know anything about autism, then you can completely understand this. All right. As I sat with Torres, I saw her repeatedly look out the front window whenever she heard noises outside her building entrance. At one point during the interview, the doorbell rang. Torres's eyes glazed over in terror, and her lips opened and closed for a few seconds as though she thought what about to do. Torres's eyes glazed over in terror, and her lips opened and closed for a few seconds as she thought about what to do. Then she ran to another room where I found her clicking the intercom button as she repeatedly said, "Hello, hello, hello." "What are you doing?" I asked. "I heard someone outside. It must have been an accident," she explained. But even though she seemed to understand that no one was there, she ran to her bedroom and stared out the bedroom window for a few moments just to make sure. Tamar Lapin reported the story at the New York Post. Lapin found the story at Ebony Magazine, a black interest news site. According to Lapin, Ebony broke the story. She called Torres' cell phone, saying that she wanted to hear the other side of the event. Torres insisted that her 911 call had nothing to do with race and that she herself was not white, and she wasn't even sure that Obregon was black. I told her, "I think you're exploiting this as a race issue when it's not." Even after revealing she has autism to the reporter at the Post, Torres was devastated to learn that the article still maintained that it was a black-white issue. It would seem that nothing Torres could say would stop the domino effect of the fake news. Months later, the internet still knows Torres as Doorway Debbie. She has made numerous attempts at suicide. I felt that nobody was going to do anything. No one was going to face any repercussions unless I were to kill myself, Torres said. I tried to kill myself. I cut myself. I just felt so done, and I felt this is never going to get better. Emily Crane's story covering Obregon's and Torres' interaction at the Daily Mail was deleted without any sort of retraction. Others still have not corrected their stories, such as Newsweek and Ebony. Others made changes to the headline from "White woman calls cops on black woman" to "Woman calls cops on woman," without explaining on the bottom of the article that the original post was corrected as journalistic ethics require. I asked Lapin if she would be willing to help fix the damage she took part in. "I really can't comment on that," she said. "I've got to go," she said before hanging up the phone. Shortly after I spoke to Lapin, the racial language was removed from the story completely. It said updated without any additional detail as to why the language was changed. I asked Lapin why she had not included corrections to the bottom of her story. She said, "It says updated on the top of the article." What about detailing what the mistakes were, especially given the harmful nature of defamation? "That's not how we do things here. We asked for her side of the story. There's nothing else we can do," Lapin said. Similarly, I asked Torres if she had a message for the media, to which she replied, "Yeah, just leave me alone. It kind of made me hate the world now that a person with special needs can't call the police anymore. People with special needs shouldn't have to worry about situations being racialized for them to get help." Torres still cannot use her social media accounts because it's bad for her mental health. She lives with paranoia, fear, and suicidal thoughts. But when I spoke to her, she smiled with resilience. In the beginning of the phone call with Lapin, I asked if she remembered writing a story about someone with the name Arabelle Torres, and she said she could not recall. Perhaps there is some consolation that someone who wrote the story doesn't remember the name she tarnished. Maybe members of that internet mob will forget about the girl they tarnished too. We can only hope. All right, guys, that's a sad one, but, it goes to show just the crazy state of the world today. It's not that racism doesn't exist. It's that the left is willing to jump on any instance of it to try and capitalize, to try and drum up anger and resentment and fear. And we don't have to live like that. It doesn't have to be like that. People need to use their minds. They need to think. They need to discern. They need to be able to realize this stuff when it comes out. And that's why I'm highlighting this article, because it's not necessarily the way that they're portraying it. You cannot trust the mainstream media, and that's why I'm here. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Red Pill 78, the corruption detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good night, everyone, and God bless.
They come from the shadows.